Tank is, people have asked me on the 29th anniversary on Saturday, they said, was Tank a difficult guy to work with? Tank was a great guy to work with. He was very smart. He was very clear on what his appeal was. And quite frankly, I have been looking for someone like Tank. Why? Everybody with a black belt in karate used to say to me, well, I think I can handle anybody. I said, well, who might you be worried about? Well, maybe some night in a bar, I might run into some guy, 6'4", who's 280 pounds and, was a Hell's Angel. I said, so you're worried about some big brawler. Well, I'm not worried about it. So I was looking for Tank, and I was glad when we brought Tank in. Tank became a star. He became one of the most popular fighters we had. Now at UFC 6 in Casper, Wyoming, I had Tank there, and I was real excited about the fact that Tank, I thought, might end up as the Ultimate Fighter. And he wound up, of course, facing a great grappler, Igor, the great Russian Bear, and the altitude was a factor for both men. And I wound up with not Tank winning that first event, but Tank and Pat Smith had spoken to each other during the event, before the event, at the press conference, and I knew that there was some sort of friction between them. I'm having breakfast the next morning in the hotel coffee shop with John McCarthy, and I'm sitting there, and John and I are having a conversation, and we see everybody running down the hallway to the elevators. And I'm hearing people, there's screaming or noise coming from that direction. So John and I got up and went in that direction, and we started to run. And Maurice Smith at one point beat us. He ran faster than we did. He got down to the elevator in time. What had happened was Tank Abbott, Tito Ortiz, and Paul Herrera, and one other guy was part of their posse, a young Hispanic from Los Angeles, had mugged Pat Smith in the elevator. When I got to the elevator, Maurice Smith was holding Pat Smith in his arms, and Pat was bleeding from his mouth. And I see Abbott going down the hallway to the other elevators, and who just passes me is Tito Ortiz and Paul Herrera. So they actually mugged Pat Smith in the elevator. That's the story, and that's a true story.
Who was one of the guys that you had issues with backstage dealing with that you had to keep around, maybe because he was a draw or a good fighter, but he was a pain in the ass to deal with?
Well, people could ask about Tank, about whether or not Tank was a problem. Tank and I always got along very well. I liked Tank, and from the first time I met him. And, he came to my office. He was wearing like Levi's or Dockers, and he had a button-down shirt. He had no beard and mustache in those days, and he had a little bag with him. And he said to me, well, where am I going to fight today? I want to show you what I can do. We're sitting in my office. I said, what do you mean fight? He said, well, isn't there a gym right? Put me up against somebody right now. So Tank early on was a brawler. I love that about him. And I had heard stories that he would go and work. He would go and compete in some of the state parks in California. He would show up with his posse, and somebody would show up with their posse, and they would park their cars, and everybody would turn their lights on. And Tank had $1,000 in the pants pocket of his jeans, and the karate black belt or the other tough guy he was up against, he had $1,000, and they would fight. And whoever won would take the other guy's $1,000. I was looking for Tank. Tank was a hard guy to deal with, but I got to tell you something. He could sell tickets, and he and I got along. And he was one of the only people who called me when Bob Myrowitz and I split after UFC Japan. The guy who called me that Monday morning was David Tank Abbott to tell me that he was always supportive of me and was wishing me the best luck. I have a lot of respect for that guy.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates. Follow us on Twitter at the Hannibal TV for instant updates.